Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program brought to you by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Larry Rhodes.
And I'm Faithless Forrest, and we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and for people committed to a life rooted in science and free of supernatural belief.
On August 31st, 2010, we had our first Freethought Forum show, and so today's show is the start of our 8th year.
Yay!
8.
We thought we would talk about some of our experiences on the show with one another and ask for your viewer input.
And now we want to tell viewers about the show sponsors. The Atheist Society of Knoxville frequently has a fun meetup at a bar or eatery. They actually have one tonight and every Tuesday night at Flats and Taps near Westtown Mall at 7403 Kingston Pike in Knoxville. When you get to the meetup, look for the silver-jacketed copy of God Delusion standing upright on the table. That's right, that one. Or just look around for the largest group there. We have the biggest table, and we're probably the loudest ones, too.
All right.
And as Matt Delahunty at Atheist Experience always says, everyone is welcome, whether for a happy hour for food, drink, and conversation. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't.
The Rationalists of East Tennessee have several regular monthly meetings. The first and third Sunday mornings of the month are usually lectures with lively roundtable discussions. The second Sunday we hold the Skeptics Book Club. And on the fourth Sunday we're mixing it up. Sometimes it's been a potluck in a member's home. We call reflections or board games. And you'll just need to look on our website calendar for that. There haven't been many scheduled lately.
Later in the show, we will give you our website with additional details, including times and locations.
All righty, so I guess we're going to slip into the news.
Yeah, in the news, we had eclipse recently. However,
What kind of eclipse was it?
It was total solar eclipse, and I went down to Sweetwater to view it. It was excellent. It was when it actually happened, you could see like sunrise all around, or sunset, but directly overhead there was only the corona, the sun with a big black center that only allowed you to see the corona. It was really something. Traffic was really something too. Didn't have any going down, but it took us like 3 hours to get back to Knoxville.
Well, I saw the eclipse from Tellico Plains. Similar experience. I got there very early in the morning, like around 7, but it was a 3-hour drive back home for what was normally a 30-minute drive for me. Sam, did you see the total eclipse?
Yeah, I went to Loudon. I had a similar experience trying to get back, but saw total totality.
By Loudon, Fort Loudon?
No, Loudon County.
Okay. All right.
There are a lot of, in history, solar eclipses, especially total, were seen as ominous and
I mean,
prophecy.
I think it would be pretty scary if you didn't know what was going on.
Oh yeah, and all of a sudden it happened.
I mean, where I was, it was in a neighborhood, but when the eclipse actually happened, you could hear screams in all directions.
Yeah.
And it made me think of, you'd probably hear the same thing
Screams
hundreds of years ago.
Though, is what we heard.
Yeah.
So during the partial phase of the eclipse, as the moon was encroaching on the sun, you had to look at that with the safe sunglasses. And I'm trying to remember who it was that said it, but they reminded me of something. Yeah, I've heard it before, but I'd utterly forgotten about it. And that is, the ancient Egyptians would talk about, I think it's Apophis, which is a snake god, attempting to eat the sun god Ra.
Yeah.
And then when you stop and think about this shape of the front of the moon is like the front of a snake's face. And it felt kind of special to be seeing that. I was sketching it at the same time.
It looked like a bite was taken out of it.
Yep.
At the same time.
So you can kind of sympathize with them.
Yeah. Can you imagine in ancient times if you were a king or something about to go into battle and all of a sudden that happened? I mean, the kings on both sides would be wondering what to do. What kind of moment is this? Should we do the battle? Should we not do the battle? Should we just part ways? Or
it does feel eerie. When it was coming on, you just get a sense. I kept rubbing my eyes.
It kept getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and then all of a sudden it was just dark.
It's funny, I'd been talking to people about the eclipse and to people who had experienced the eclipse for months and months, but it was only in the last couple of weeks leading up to it that someone described the sun during the total phase in a way that resonated more, and that was a hole in the sky.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
almost like
I-
a black hole directly overhead.
And I wouldn't have thought of that because it was the darkest part of the whole sky. The sky around was much lighter than I had thought it might be, and in fact, I guess this was about a 2-minute eclipse. Some eclipses can be as long as 8 minutes, and so that means the moon is larger relative to the sun, and that circular sunset or sunrise, which for us, if you're in the center, it was 35 miles away, it would be about 4 times that. So it's going to be 120 miles away. So it would be a darker sky for those kind of eclipses. But of course, the solar eclipses are not the only kind of eclipse
No,
there
there
are.
are lunar eclipses when the Earth gets in the way of the sun and casts its shadow on the moon. Those are something too.
And Rev, I think we got a Facebook meme on that. And lo and behold,
The flat earthers are right.
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, that's what flat earthers believe.
It is a flat Earth standing on some elephants, the backs of elephants, all of which are standing on a turtle. How about that?
That's ridiculous than what I've heard them actually say.
But what's wrong with Victor?
Yeah, well, it's my assertion though that that's still wrong because it's supposed to be turtles all the way down.
That was someone talking to Christopher Hitchens, wasn't it? Or who was it?
Oh, I'm
Well,
not
I think
sure.
it might have been
Yeah.
someone that asked for sure.
Oh, maybe it was Dawkins, because he was
Yeah.
having a conversation with this woman, and she said something about flat Earth on elephants' backs on turtle. He said, "Well, lady, what's the turtle standing on?" And she said, "It's turtles all the way down."
All the way down.
Yeah, it's funny.
All right, but with faith you can believe anything.
You can, and matter of fact, you can believe any religious claim using faith. Therefore, it's a very poor means of acquiring knowledge. Basically, faith is feeling. I mean, if you get a feeling for something, you say, "Well, I trust my God. I trust my faith," and then whatever you feel can be true or not true. It's just not a good means for epistemology.
All righty. Well, if we move on to the next image, we got a little some questions on Facebook, and Sam, you want to read this?
Okay.
Oops,
Is that
page
another
up.
The back of the first.
Yeah, it was
the
this
back.
one
Okay.
here.
I've been asked to pray for the poor folks in the Houston area. My heart goes out to them, but I'm confused. Which God should I pray to? The one who's causing the tragedy or the one who does nothing to stop it?
Right.
And and that gets to where every time there's some disaster and people say, "Oh well, we've taken God out of the schools," or "We haven't prayed enough," or "Let's all get together and pray for someone to recover."
Yeah, I saw a picture of a house that didn't have damage from the flood, but all the other houses were destroyed, and they had painted on their house, like, "Thank God." So, oh, thank God for saving us. But our neighbors, though,
Yeah. They obviously aren't as good a people as we are.
Yeah.
It's blaming the victim mentality.
And are we going to mention the Joel Osteen debacle that's also happened?
Something one of you just said made me remember I think this comes from The Devil's Dictionary by, goodness, he was a contemporary of Ingersoll.
Ambrose Pierce.
There we go, Ambrose Bierce, I think.
Bierce. Right.
And he said that to a religious person, it was the thing about the house. To a religious person, when ill fortune comes into their life, it's just God testing them. But when it comes into their neighbor's life, it's a judgment upon them.
Yeah, so true.
All righty.
I don't think it was in our news, but mention the Joel Osteen.
That's what this
yeah.
next.
Okay, it is.
No, this isn't it. So yeah, what about Joel Osteen? Why is he in the news?
Because he has a huge open mega church that
like a stadium.
Yeah,
It's
that
huge.
he decided to keep closed, and it was untouched by
And
damage.
where is this church?
It's in Houston.
In Houston,
Yeah.
where there are many
Yeah,
displaced
and a
persons.
reporter had went down there and verified that it was in good condition and
Above the water.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it was dry all around it. but he wouldn't open it to the people, very people who gave him money and made him a
Yeah.
rich man.
Well, he has now, but that's because he's been
So much.
beaten and shamed
So
quite thoroughly on the internet.
The power of shame has been
Uh-huh.
brought to bear.
But I think that's the point. Joel Osteen teaches the prosperity doctrine, and how are you supposed to make money of people that are suffering? Like, they can't give you money. He asks tons of money out of the people that come to his megachurch.
Right.
Those people that are in need from the storm, they can't give you money. So
Yeah.
he runs a business, tax-free business,
Yeah.
where he begs.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
all righty. So then also on our Facebook page, there was this thing posted here. Oh, look.
We've got a phone call.
All right. That's great. Why don't you greet them?
Welcome to Freethought Forum. May we have a name or a nickname?
It's Charles from Central Illinois.
Hello, Charles.
Hey, welcome back.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Well, I was watching your stream, and you're cutting out.
No, it's bad to hear.
Was it just one person's cutting out or all of us?
Well, the sound itself is cutting out.
All righty. We'll try
So I
and...
did catch a good amount of the news.
You got some news for us.
Some of the news that you were talking about.
All right. Charles is our reporter from Central Illinois.
Now, one of the things that I did see on the news is they were talking on MSNBC, is that they mentioned something that, when we're out there rescuing people, we're not asking questions, are you a Christian, or are you a Muslim, or are you a Catholic? We're not asking, are you straight, or are you gay, or are you transgendered, or anything. We're just out there getting them out of there, which I think speaks for a whole lot of the stuff that we see and hear on the news. Is the squeaky wheel gets the oil. The other wheels, the rest of the society, is not paying that much attention to the babbling going on by a lot of the talking heads.
Well, it would be good if that's true. It certainly would be awful if we had churches out there applying, faith tests for who they would help.
Yeah.
Right.
It
But
happens every day.
we
I'm glad they
interviewed.
shamed- Yeah,
w-
I'm glad they shamed Joel Olson into actually doing something. It may
Yeah,
not be much, but he should have had that thing open and going strong when the rain started.
Well,
It
we
was
know where his
probably-
He
head's
didn't.
at.
Waiting for God's word. Or something.
and
Yeah.
we have these scientific prophecies. They're called weather forecasts, and while they're not perfect, they apparently were better than the message he got.
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to
was
hear his
unprepared.
excuse. I'm sure he'll have some statement and try to
He's working
have
up one now,
some
sure.
publicity statement of why he was so late to react. He's not going to admit that the shaming did it, of course.
Yeah. All righty. But
By
we,
the
we,
way,
we have interviewed here on this show Rebecca, her name is Vitzman.
Vitzman.
And she was the woman
CNN.
whose house was destroyed, and she was interviewed on CNN, and Wolf Blitzer asked her if she thanked God, and she had to say, well, actually, I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
But she did talk about how there in, I think it was Moore, Oklahoma, where she was living,
yes.
that a lot of churches did show up and do good work, but they were in uniform, meaning they had T-shirts on. They were
Advertising.
advertising that
Bibles
they
as
were
well,
doing
I'm
good
sure.
work. And I think she did say that at some point there were some of them trying to proselytize even her, and maybe especially her because she, did
Came
become
out as
did get publicity over her response. But that there is an active secular group that responds to these national tragedies, and she's active in that group because I think you know, she had firsthand experience of how important it is to be involved. There's Foundation Beyond Belief that is the group she's active with. All righty. Well, Charles.
And but before we sign off or anything, congratulations on 8 years.
Thank you.
So we're starting 8 years. This is 7
Well,
at this point.
Today is our first show of our 8th year.
Yeah, well, congratulations on 7 years, though.
All
Thank
righty.
you.
Charles, thank you much. We'll say goodbye then.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, so also here on the, and this is from the Freethought Forum Facebook page. You know, we've got an open Facebook page. You don't have to be a member to post. But this was like a meme, and it says, "Shower thoughts," and it says, "If Jesus was born from a virgin birth, doesn't that mean he has only an X chromosome? Wouldn't that make him female?"
It would.
And so what was the response to that?
This is trans Jesus, trans Jesus, trans Jesus.
So apparently so.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have been trans. He would have been just a female clone of Mary.
Oh, I think the reason, the assertion that he's trans Jesus is he was passing as male.
Oh, right. Okay, I see.
Now then, there's a theologian posted here. I like this one.
The species which are...
No, the one above
Oh,
it.
okay. I've taken 3 years of theology, 1 of apologetics, and 1 of anatomy and physiology, and honestly stumped by this one.
All righty. So, if you want to interact with our show on Facebook, you can find us. We are Freethought Forum TV, and I think it's got the word Knox in it. Oh, goodness. Yeah.
There shouldn't be too many Facebook pages.
Freethought Forum Knoxville.
Freethought Forum. But there are 1 or 2 others.
Yep, and so some of us are watching this thing, and you know, and so here we had a little bit for today's show. All right, so shall we jump into our program here?
Okay.
We decided not to show the videos because their audio was not so good. So Larry's made a nice list of people we've interviewed, and it was delightful to be reminded of some of these. I'd forgotten about many of them. Why don't you start with a few?
Well, I think you were on the show when Aaron Ra was being interviewed, weren't you?
No, because I wanted to desperately ask him a question, and so I called in.
Oh, okay.
Who hosted that?
Rev.
Yeah.
Rev was on, and
Was I on it too? I couldn't remember if I watched it or if I
I mean...
Well, who is Aaron Ra? We can answer that question.
all right, I'll lob you that
YouTube
softball. Who is
superstar.
Aaron Ra?
He's an apologist for atheism. He's on YouTube a lot, has a lot of YouTube videos. He's also made some podcasts. He's also traveling around speaking to groups. If you could see Aaron Ra, you would think that he was a big biker. He's about 6.5 foot tall. He's probably weighs 300 pounds, maybe 250. But long hair and beard, but very eloquent, very well educated, and he knows his stuff when he's talking about evolution, which is his subject of choice.
He's one of the people that really got me into atheism before I started the show.
And he's happy to answer questions about evolution and supply the scientific background between any of the questions or concepts that evolution espouses. And he was nice enough to come on our show via phone and answer our questions. And that show is archived. We can always go back and look at it. So it's so handy to have it.
Larry is the keeper of our library of past shows.
Yep.
So I first saw Aaron Ra when he was on Atheist Experience, but they were talking almost as if he hadn't been there for a while. But I assumed that meant he was like a regular host who had just not been active.
Maybe active in the group.
Well, I guess I'm bringing it up because I actually don't really know his status. Or was he maybe just an occasional visitor, and therefore they were happy to have him back? How did you first see him then?
On YouTube. He's pretty popular on
His
YouTube.
own shows,
Yeah.
or not Atheist Experience?
Yeah, his own shows.
Yeah,
I
he
watched
makes his
both
own
of them
videos.
separately, yeah.
Okay. I've seen a great presentation he did on evolution. And he was obviously, he was speaking in front of a large audience, so it wasn't like,
He travels
him in
around
a
the States
bedroom
quite often, yeah.
making YouTubes. It was speaking to the public. All righty. So the next one, number 2.
We should probably tell the audience how to spell his name. You would think it's Aaron, but it's Aaron, Aronra. So if you want to look up any of his YouTube videos, you can put that in and find him pretty easily.
All righty.
Sorry, go ahead.
So the next one is an author.
James Lindsay. Yeah, I read his book, The God Who Doesn't. And he's a mathematician. I think he lives in Maryville.
I was going to say, well, he's local, and yeah,
he's
I think
local.
it is Maryville.
And,
I didn't see that show. I apparently wasn't even screening calls or anything that day.
And I read his book and recommended that he do our show, and he was kind enough to call in and answer our questions. He's by trade he's a mathematician and author, but he talks a lot about probability, and he addresses some of the things that the Bible and the practitioners of Christianity say that God does, and he answers it with probability and why it's really a God who doesn't. I recommend it highly. That's the name of the book, The God Who Doesn't.
Also proves that you can get into disproving God from pretty much any angle of study, and that is one way to get to it is from math.
Yeah, right. True. And that was James A. Lindsay, Lindsay.
All righty. Well, I can grab this next one.
Sure.
We've also done phone interviews with Annie Laurie Gaylor and Dan Barker. I know we've done Annie Laurie at least a couple of times. She called in. We had an all-girls show, and they were speaking. I think it was not long after Annie's mother's passing, and they spoke about Annie's mother's life work, which was at first it was supporting women's rights, but it morphed into trying to drive religion out of the government, because that was really the strong impediment. And I think it was the defeat of the ERA amendment that really crystallized their motivation, that they had to push back against organized religion. And I guess the Mormon Church was real strong in efforts to defeat the Equal Rights Amendment.
Of course they
No,
would be.
Sorry?
I said, of course they would be.
Oh, yeah. Did we ever have Dan Barker on the show?
He's called in and been interviewed. I'll confess I forget what the particular subject was.
Yeah.
I've listened to so many of his podcasts that it all blurs together.
Of course, Annie Laurie Gaylor and Dan Barker are the co-presidents of the Freedom from Religion Foundation out of Madison, Wisconsin. It was Annie's mother who founded the group. A lot of people who may recognize those names, Annie Laurie Gaylor and Dan Barker, and know that they've been married for 20, 30 years, don't realize where they met. Do you remember where they met?
I've seen the show.
I can't remember.
They met on the Oprah show.
On the Oprah Winfrey
Yeah,
show.
and the show is still out there on YouTube. Go look for Annie Laurie Gaylor, Dan Barker, and Oprah. And I think the show was in the mid-'70s or maybe a little later. But he was on the show as an ex-preacher atheist, and she was on the show with her mother as founding the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And they met on the show and had to answer a lot of questions from the audience. It was a very interesting show.
Yeah. I've heard Dan Barker tell the story how he'd read Annie Laurie's book, Woe to the Women, the Bible Tells Me So.
Annie Laurie Gaylor's mother?
No, that's Annie Laurie's book.
Really?
And he'd written to them, complimenting the book. And Annie's mother, man, I cannot remember her name now.
It's Annie Laurie, I thought. Okay, Annie, or maybe Laurie.
It's Ann.
But it was, I thought her name was the same, but it just was missing one of the names.
Maybe it's just, she went by Ann Gaylor.
Could be.
But it was her mother who responded back. And then there was this invitation to appear on the Oprah show where they, I think it was coordinated through FFRF, but they were aware that Dan Barker was a preacher who'd lost faith and suggested to Oprah that Oprah invite him as well.
Right. And you can read his book, which is called Losing Faith in Faith.
Yes, indeed. I've read that one. It's
Dan Barker's first book, of course, he's written several of them now, but the first one was about his travels from a teenage preacher who used to go down into Mexico and in Southern California and convert people to becoming an atheist and having to actually sit down and write letters to all the people he knew in the church and his family and all the people in his congregation saying, I no longer believe. I'm an atheist. And that takes an awful lot of courage to do something like that. And he did.
Yeah, it was interesting for me to read his book and hear how doubt crept into his life. Being a lifelong non-believer, it's always surprising to me. But in his case, he talked about how he, when he was real young, he thought the end of the world, the second coming of Christ, was imminent. But then life kept going on, and it didn't happen. And he started to learn more about the Bible, and he may have written this in the book. I know he says it on their podcasts that when they threw out the bathwater, there was no baby.
Yeah. You throw out all the bad stuff and look for the good, and about the only thing left was the fact that people were getting together, and we can keep that. I mean,
they have no monopoly on that.
No, a congregation of any kind is good for the people involved, as far as social support, interaction, I don't know, just emotional support. And that's why we have groups.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. It's human nature. We are a gregarious species.
We are.
All righty. Do we have anything more to amplify on Rebecca? I think we've kind of covered.
Yeah, we covered her early.
All righty.
She is topical now.
So we also interviewed Gleb Tspersky. Man, it's a Russian name, and he's written both a book as well as kind of a course on building a purpose in life. He may have called it something like Finding a Purpose in Life, but having read portions of his book, I would kind of characterize it as it's tools to help you develop a purpose in life. Find the things that interest you that you may be good at and might be able to do better for the world.
You make your own purpose in life. You don't let somebody give it to you. Especially someone who is disinterested in your life as a church or an organization, who's really only interested in self-preservation and the accumulation of wealth.
Mr. Olstein.
Sorry?
Mr. Olstein, for example.
Yeah, like Holstein.
So it reminds me, I can't remember her name, but it was a University of Tennessee professor from the theology department. We were talking once after the show, and I was making reference to preachers such as Olstein, and she kind of objected to that, and I realized, oh yeah, she's right. There are certainly going to be plenty of people who go into religion because when they were young they were taught that if you want to do good, that's how you do it, and people desiring to do good will then follow that path. And in fact, I think if we'd had Dan Barker here, he felt he was trying to do right by people.
Right.
It's
He was wanting to help the world,
Yeah,
make
so-
it a better place.
so within the church organizations, you will find both kinds of people.
Right.
I think the biggest problem with that is in Christianity, that's an internal problem. And it's how do the good Christians handle the bad Christians? And it kind of seems like they don't. They just kind of let them be.
Well, even the good Christians don't look outside of the Bible for your purpose. Even they will say, you need to do good, you need to be moral, you need to treat your fellow human correctly, but then you've got to do what Jesus said. You have to go out and
I mean, if they don't, they're not Christians. So.
right, you have to go out and make more converts, you have to support the church, and all they just all turn it right back down into the church. Was it Asimov that said that the worst thing that had happened in the 20th century, or early, just the worst thing that could happen was the the hijacking of morality by religion.
It's Steven Weinberg. He's
Steven Weinberg.
A particle physicist out of Texas. He's probably being rained on right now. He wrote a really great book called The First 3 Minutes, which is about early cosmological events that the result of which is that the stars around us are about 70% hydrogen and about 25% helium.
First 3 minutes of the universe.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's a fascinating book. It was challenging for me to read, though, even with a bachelor's in physics. But I would encourage people to give it a shot. And even if you don't understand the details of the science in the arguments, at least you can understand the conclusions and the fact that they're arrived at not by just wild guesses, but by processes that can be confirmed by watching the stars around us, how they work, and measuring the elemental distribution.
That's one of the problems when you talk to Christians too. Well, what do you think happened? There was nothing before this, and like they have an easy answer, and like you said, like, well, I have an answer, but it was hard for you to read with your degree. Like, it's not some succinct story that you can just tell somebody.
They're just happy with the answers they were given rather than trying to actually find out
That's
how
hard.
it actually did happen. And that's one thing that Richard Dawkins says about religion. He says it teaches you to be satisfied with non-answers. And that's the problem he is having with it.
And that's an important label, a non-answer. Saying God did it is a non-answer because
They feel perfectly satisfied with
it's
it, I
actually
guess.
more questions than it is answers. You can
Anything
make a
beyond
whole
that's
show
just
on
faith.
questions about God and not come up with anything. Sorry?
Anything beyond that is just space to them.
Right.
All right, well, so number 6, do you remember that interview?
I do.
Sam?
I was on it.
I'm not sure. I'm sure I was here. I've been here for pretty much almost every episode.
You've been watching the camera and making sure it works. So you were on air for, we interviewed the head of the National Center for Science Education.
Eugenie Scott.
All righty. And what's the National Center for Science Education
Well,
all about?
as
or
it
what are
says,
they?
it's a national center. It was a federal center, or at least one that covered the United States. And what they do is they try to produce guidelines for science education throughout the country. And she'd been the head of it for several years at this point. And I learned her name by watching YouTube videos and watching her speak on YouTube videos basically about evolution and the Dover trial. She did an awful lot of talking about that. If you haven't had a chance to watch the Dover trial, I would recommend that you go online and look up the Dover trial, Creationism on Trial in America. It's like the second monkey trial that ever happened in America. And the first, of course, was Dayton, which is only about 60 miles south of here. That was in 1925, and this happened, I don't know, 80 years later.
2005 or so, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
So it was 80 years later. Very interesting case, and it was decided for evolution and against creationism, or what they called intelligent design, basis on the facts of the case. And they present the facts of the case in the video if you get a chance. Plus all of the background goings on in the city. It's a 2-hour video. But one of the things you don't want to do to a judge during a trial is lie to him. And the creationists lied to him during the trial. And that was not a good path
What was
for
it
them.
specifically that they lied about?
Well, he asked them if they had actually, this particular group who was in the trial representing Christianity had put money into the production of this book and in distributing to the local people, and they said no.
Oh, okay.
And the opposition produced a check showing that they had.
It was a receipt. Apparently the books were shipped with a packing list that was also a receipt.
Okay.
And
I thought it was the check.
and that got copied and sent to them. Someone who was handling the books found that packing list.
Right. But anyway, that was one of the things that turned him off about it. And the thing about it was, this judge was a Bush appointee. He was not like a Democratic appointee or something. He was a right-wing political appointee, and he could still see the facts of the case lent
These battles
overwhelmingly
still
toward
go on.
evolution.
Like, these are things we still have to fight for.
I'm looking at the time. Should we do our mid-program break?
Sure, works for me.
Alrighty. So, in case you're just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions.
Shows are live most Tuesdays from 5 o'clock to 5:55 Eastern on Knoxville Community Access Television, Channel 12 Comcast, or Channel 194. I can't think of the other.
Charter.
Charter. Thank you.
Charter.
Depending on your local cable network. So that's 12 or 194. Tell your out-of-town friends to see us streaming online at ctvknox.org.
Today's show is live Tuesday, August 29th, and you can call in on the number on the screen and speak with us. While we take a short break, please watch these informative videos about our sponsors.
Do you find stories of talking snakes laughable? Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org. If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun.
As the video said, the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, meets 1 or 2 times a week, generally just one these days. We have meetings for fun, food, drink, and conversations. The purpose of ASK is to supply a venue for the community, camaraderie, and outreach to atheists, agnostics, freethinkers, and other like-minded persons in the East Tennessee area. Our Tuesday meeting is going on now at West Hills Taps and Flats. That's near Westtown.
The first Sunday of September, which is the 3rd, at 10:30 in the Goins Cafeteria Annex, the Pellissippi State Technical Community College is the location for the Rationalists of East Tennessee's next topic or discussion. There is no chosen topic. It's going to be other than current events. It says if there are any current events that you would like to discuss, please bring them with you. Otherwise, we will discuss 4 or 5 recent happenings and how they affect our day-to-day lives.
The second Sunday of most months is the Rationalists of East Tennessee Skeptic Book Club. The book for August is Hillbilly Elegy, A Memoir of a Family and Culture in Crisis by J.D. Vance. Meet on Sunday, September 10th, 2 p.m. The public is invited to participate. You need not have read the book, but of course it helps. Visit rationalist.org to find the rest of the calendar of books and join us at our location at Books A Million, Kingston Pike.
Alrighty.
And go ahead.
That one there.
The third Sunday is RET's September DVD presentation from the Skeptic Society Distinguished Lecture Series by geneticist Svante Pabo, titled Neanderthal Man, The Search of Lost Genomes. That should be very interesting.
Alrighty.
With all of this, you have about 8 times a month that you can get together with atheists and freethinkers, agnostics in Tennessee. You just have to do a Google search to find any of us, and we'll look for you there. Be okay if I plugged my radio show?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Where else can you hear freethinkers?
That's right. Every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on WOZO radio here in Knoxville. That's 103.9 FM. It's low power here in Knoxville because we're just a 100-watt station. But we have an atheist call-in radio show, and you can listen to us streaming online also at WOZOradio.com. I'll be your host, and we usually have a caller or two. and one of our esteemed colleagues from here, Riv, usually joins us as well. So be there or be square. That's Wednesdays at 7.
All righty. Well, so looking at the clock, we've got
Yeah, we
about
got 14
minutes
left.
left. Sam suggests we should jump to this and
We
talk
could
about some of the
we could
topics
touch on some
we've
people
covered.
really fast
Sure.
if you want to.
So this first topic, why is religion harmful? I think
Well-
that's important to talk about.
When we get to our topics, this is the start of our 8th year, and we've had almost every Tuesday. It's been cut back to 3 times a month now, but this is a lot of shows, so these are just a sampling of the topics we've had. I think we've covered pretty much everything that you could possibly cover on this subject. So of course we only have an hour to touch them, so we have to come back to many of them.
Well, it's funny you say that because I've never done a show that I've wanted to, which I know maybe I can't do a whole show out of it, but I can summarize it like this. Within about 3 sentences into the Hebrew Bible, we can know that it's myth because it's at odds with modern science. But we could go through and look at other places where it's at odds with modern science as well.
Well, what's the third sentence that you were referring to?
In the beginning, God created the heavens. So in the beginning, that's an idiomatic expression. It's like it warns people that, well, a story is coming your way. It's like once
Right.
upon a time.
Right.
God created the heaven and the earth. Oh, wow, it's a creation story.
And every
Those
society
cultures
has
have
a
them.
creation myth. Everyone. No exception.
And then it goes on about, darkness over the surface of the water, and God moved over the surface of the water and then said, let there be light. So as soon as we say, and let there be light, and prior to that, there was the heaven and the earth. As soon as we see light being created after the heaven and the earth, we know that it's not reconcilable with modern science because while that book by Steven Weinberg explains why light was real important in the early universe. Light was a significant fraction of the mass of the universe was tied up in light.
I'm sure the arguments you get for that are it's allegory or it's magic maybe.
And that would be what we'd want to talk about on the show as
Maybe
to why
the
that's
sun's
an
like a light bulb
inadequate-
and it was just off and he just went clink.
But so why is religion harmful? You get a lot of people saying, well, religion causes people to do good. They go and help after tornadoes in Moore, for instance.
You don't have to have religion to do that, though.
Right. So that's not a characteristic of religion and religion only.
Well, I'd
There
like
we
to.
go.
I've got an article on digitalfreethought.com called "What's So Wrong with Religion," and I'd like to point people there if they'd really like to know more about why religion is harmful. I've got probably 1,500 words or 2,000 words about that. So.
All righty. All right. So we got more in the list here. Who wants to pick another one to talk about? Yeah, I talked about the harmful one because it bothers me when people assume religion is not merely the only path to good, but just that there isn't, other paths to good, that they've got some kind of monopoly on it, and the fact that it's harmful, they're oblivious to.
Yeah, as I had mentioned earlier, you can pretty much disprove God and religion through every form of study, and I think we've had shows that follow that. We've had many shows on philosophy, we've had many shows on evolution, science, on astronomy, on geography even.
Well, a lot of people like to say that, and you're talking about philosophy and religion, that religion is basically a field of philosophy, but it's not. It's a body
Tries
of
to tell you
dictates,
how it works, yeah.
Claims and dictates. Philosophy is a study of ideas and how you can arrive at ideas through a logical discussion and form good logical arguments without using fallacies to reach your conclusion. Religion just tells you this is the way it is, and you better accept it, and that's it.
I mean, philosophy wants a discourse,
Right.
it wants to talk. Religion doesn't want to talk.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
I would have said philosophy teaches you to try to find, to look for falsenesses in your ideas, to try to make a better idea out of it. So if you can find defects, you are on the path to making it better.
And if you disagree, the phone lines are open. The number is at the bottom of the screen.
All righty. So here in the list was Mormonism. I remember
Yeah, people sometimes say that we pick on Christianity a lot, but that's just because that was our backgrounds, and that's
And
the
that's what we're
people that are
surrounded
around
by.
here. But
Yeah.
we do not discriminate. We think all religions are full of it.
I found that the show on Mormonism was entertaining because I didn't
Yeah.
know much about it.
I've learned a
And-
lot by Mormons visiting me personally, coming to my door. I invite them in, unlike some atheists, to shoo them off.
I've never
Well,
had
I like
Mormons
it. I
come
like it.
visit me.
Jehovah's Witnesses.
I've had Jehovah's Witnesses,
I welcome it.
and it was on the same show where we had a Jehovah's Witness, so we could kind of compare and contrast.
I've had both. I've had different experiences from each.
All righty, and then so we said Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, and we've had former Muslims as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Scientologists.
The funny thing
we've
is
had a
that
Scientologist on air.
I'm pretty sure we have. It's been 7 years. I think we did it at least once.
when we talked about it, I don't know anybody.
I
That
Well, we
I
talked
don't know any
about
of our
it.
members
Yeah,
being former.
But if the viewers think that the new atheism is the only atheism, we invite you to go back and look up works of Mark Twain, like Letters from
Letters from the Earth.
the Earth. They were written by Satan, but it's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of him making fun of religion.
Yeah.
And before that, look up Robert G. Ingersoll. That's Ingersoll. And before that, look up Thomas Paine. He wasn't technically an atheist, but he was certainly not a Christian, and many of the founding fathers were not Christians.
despite what Christians
Despite
will try
what
to
they
tell
would
you.
have you think.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that Thomas Paine wrote what he wrote.
The Age of Reason.
Yeah, in a sense, he would have said opposing atheism. It would be so interesting to have a conversation with that man now.
But he was really opposing Christianity when he wrote it. He was saying basically that Christianity and Judaism maligned the true God. And he believed in a deist God, and he would think that God would never do the atrocities that have outlined as having been done by him in the Bible. So it's very interesting reading.
Well, one topic that was near and dear to my heart was the interview with the Satanic Temple.
No, yeah.
I love the work they do. They're secular and non-religious, and
Yeah,
kind
they
of
don't
just
believe in Satan, even though
no. They just see Satan as a figure.
think of it as a
Take
loyal
away the bad.
opposition.
They take away the bad out of Satan
Yeah.
and leave him as a figure to look up to.
And there was one comedian who was saying, how do we know that God's a good one? I mean, we have a book by God, but we don't have a book
The
by
winner
Satan.
always writes the rules, right? History is
Right.
written by the winners.
We haven't heard his side. You know.
Well-
But we don't believe in either of them, so they're both fictitious and mythological.
I think it's Thomas Paine who talks about nature and what science teaches about nature, and that science is, in a sense, teaching people how to read the book of nature. And he makes a point about the book of nature that is very different than the book of Yahweh, and that is, without a doubt, no human being can forge the book of nature.
Looks like we've got a phone
Yeah,
call. We
no,
can take
human-
real quick. We've got
Yeah.
about 6 minutes left.
Alrighty. Hello, you're on Freethought Forum. Can we get a name or a nickname, please?
Just caller would work.
Hey, caller.
Caller?
Hello, caller. Comment or question, please.
Yeah, comment. Did you just say did the large fellow on the right there? Did he say something to the effect that Thomas Paine was technically an atheist?
No, I said he was a deist.
Deist.
I
yeah.
said he was not technically an atheist.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the sound is coming through a little odd today, and
That's
I
what
thought
we've heard.
for sure I heard, and I thought, no, that's not right.
No.
That's all I was calling about.
Alrighty. But caller, where are you calling from?
Blount County.
Alrighty.
Yeah, well, local.
And have you watched before?
Yes, I have. I
right.
set my smartphone thing there and try to tune in each week.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We'll wish you a good day then.
All
We'll
right.
clear the line. Hopefully we'll get another caller. We have a little less than 5 minutes. We can talk to someone for about 3 minutes if you call now.
I think another one that I'd like to point out is the ghost mediums, near-death experiences, because a lot of us, most of us in the different groups we're in, I think we're not just atheists, but rationalists, like
And humanists.
yeah, in all forms of life, not just on the views of religion, but as when it comes to, ghosts or spirits, or even conspiracy theories. I think most people in our organizations or a battle see any falsities as equally bad.
We did make levity at the expense of flat earthers earlier in this very program.
I know a few personally. It's a terrifying problem that we are at this point now.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, it was a common phrase. There's no such things as ghosts, and it didn't seem like it was treated seriously.
I know plenty of atheists who believe in ghosts and
Yeah.
explain it in different ways. So it's
Yeah,
not
atheism is one question,
Yeah, it's
and
not
one
a-
answer about one question, and after that you can believe in anything you want to. Matter of fact, Buddhists basically are atheists because they don't believe that Buddha was a god.
You can still have a bunch of silly
Yeah.
beliefs and not believe in God.
Yeah.
Like, it does not exclude you from them.
Which brings us to another program we did, was where we were answering misconceptions about atheism. And there are an awful lot of misconceptions out there, like, why do you hate God?
That's right. I've seen that one.
Yeah, I get why you angry at God.
And
But I'm always by the fact that if it was proven that the God of the Bible does exist, I would still be against him.
that's an important moral stance. Yes.
I
Yeah.
can be mad at, Voldemort.
Yeah.
So I can be mad at
I've
God.
heard people say, why are you atheists always so angry? Well, I'm not saying we're not. A lot of times we are, especially when the topic's on religion. But there's an article that was written by Greta Christina, if you want to look that up. It says 50 reasons why atheists are mad and have every right to be.
Yeah,
And
that's a
she
good one.
actually went on and turned it into a book in 99 Reasons. So Greta Christina, Google that name and find her article, and you'll get an answer to that question anyway.
I would say if a theist asked me this right now, I would say, well, you're encountering us when we're angry because you've done something to infringe on our rights, and that makes
happens
people
ra-
angry.
It happens
And so-
rather constantly,
so we-
especially
Or
in the
call us
news.
immoral simply because we don't
Yeah.
support the religion.
Yeah, and so that's why it's happening. It's a reaction to our rights being trampled and our
That
humanity
happens
being
on a pretty
questioned.
constant basis, and I think it's getting worse in the past few years. So I think we've got
Alright.
every reason to be.
We got a minute. We got one more to cover in a minute.
We talked about coming out of the atheist closet. I'm sure there are some listeners out there who are still in the closet. We don't have much time to talk about it right now, but it's a great topic to get into if you want to do a search
Yeah,
for it.
it's usually interesting of how
There are videos, and
how it gets
articles
to
written
people.
on that.
In fact, actually, that's the most interesting conversation I think that happens regularly down at Flats and Taps
Yeah.
when we get someone new. How did you find us? So you knew.
What religion did you come from?
Yes, and
But two of us on the panel have been pretty secular our whole lives, so it's kind of can be a mystery to us even.
I was, in case you're wondering out there, I was born and raised Baptist and didn't lose Christianity until college, which was after the Navy.
All righty, we're here.
Okay, it's time to start wrapping things up. Get out your pen and paper. This has been Freethought Forum program underwritten by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee.
You can give us feedback by voicemail at 865-272-9060 or email at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com. Find our Facebook page, Freethought Forum Knoxville.
You can see this show on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on this Knoxville station and at ctvknox.org.
We would like to thank our call screener, Leah and Riv, for our technical support, and the staff at CTV Knox for all of our viewers.
Nuns, those who identify with no religion, are the fastest growing religious group in America. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics at the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee, where you can find fun and fellowship.
You are not alone.